Houdini 21 has added a bunch of cop nodes. This is an investigation of using some of them. And so basically I have a setup here where I'm scattering onto curves to get this text, and then I'm scattering those curves animated into various locations on a surface, and then faking a refraction and caustics on the bottom. So the way I set it up is obviously I set up a bunch of letters here, Ripple, R-I-P-P-L-E, and then they have a new thing called cable. So I can pack all of those into one cable. You can use cables for lots of things in 21, like putting 10 things and brightening them all at the same time, or overing lots of things, stuff like that. It's incredibly versatile, and I suggest you look them up. Here I'm just using them to assemble stamps for curve scatter, so let's have a look at that. And I'll turn off the template over here, which I just had on to be able to see the valley and the surface water at the same time. So I took a curve. I could have easily have just drawn this with the new 3D curve cop, but here I'm just creating some geometry, a basic circle, and then I'm using that to scatter to each of its points, and I've set curve scatter to cycle, so it goes R-I-P-P-L-E, R-I-P-P-L-E, however many letters that is, cycling over and over again. And then here I just set a minor expression on the scale, and all that is set up to do is to scale it from the middle and then repeat and repeat and repeat so that we get our ripples outwards. And then we want to create 8 of those. So they don't have time offset in COPS yet, or time shifting, but we do in SOPs. So if we just bring that into each one of these into SOPs, and it's kind of clunky. You have to do a lot of steps from layer to geo and geo back to layers, etc., but it's totally doable. So here I just have a time shift with an expression on it, and then we pack those again because I want to put that into a shape scatter. So we used curve scatter earlier for the individual letters, and then for the assembled ripple, we'll use shape scatter to place those. I also put all of this in an HDA, which might make your life easier because you don't have to dive in and set an expression for each one of the layers. I'll make a better one. This was just a quick hacky one with some ramps and stuff like that, so you have more control. But this is good enough for this demo. And then an alpha on it so that the ripple, as it gets to the outer edge, it fades off. And then we shape scatter the ripples all over the place. And the way that they are moving all over the place instead of just in a grid is using the jitter. I'm not using any of the other features in here, but the shape scatter is just, it's awesome. It's very, very exceptional tool. It's super fast. The way it's scattering is using tiles. It's very efficient and fast. And then we sort of repeat that same setup here, but instead of just with a simple SDF shape, instead of curve scatter and rings of letters, same thing, we're using the time offset and the alpha, and again, just shape scattering that with exactly the same setup so that they line up with each other. And then down here, we need a sort of a wavy surface to affect our ripples on the bottom of the seafloor. So this is just setting a position map here. Fractal noise will take a position map in. And the idea was running some expressions using sine waves on the position map just to not only, you can animate fractal noise, but I wanted to sort of like wave the surface a bit, just so it feels a bit jiggly and more natural. And then creating a slope map out of that because we need that to distort our caustics over here. Now I have a bunch of caustic shaders I've written in OpenCL that I'll share in some other videos, but for here we're just faking it RGB and then joining those, and so you've got these sort of fake caustics where the red, green, and blue channel is offset. And each red, green, and blue are distorted slightly differently, so it gives the impression of chromatic aberration and caustics. We won't notice. It's underneath the water. It's going to be distorted. It'll look fine. And then over here, set up some terrain, and we'll just look at that converted to a height field here. And you can see here that the ramp is making the valley being added to the fractal. And then we converted it to geo just because I want the UVs, because I want to be able to put a texture onto this surface just to preview it. And so that texture, we'll use scatter again here. So here I just scattered some, the word rock using the map here. So it's rockier in one part and then kind of inverted that so it's plantier, I guess, in other parts. And here's one of the features of Shape Scatter. There's just tons. It's such a cool tool. Shape Scatter has this color by ramp, and so you can see here I get variations of them by the ramp. But you can drive. Oh yeah, actually I'm driving color by the fractal. So yeah, so you can actually, if you had terrain, have the color of plants change as you went from the valley up to the peak, etc. It's quite cool. Anyway. And then over here, I'm just taking this as a texture and putting it on a template, and that way we can see, you know, this before we take it out to Karma, whatever, we get sort of a preview of what our valley would look like. Obviously, you know, we would do something more professional than this, but this is fine for a quick demo. And then what we're doing is we're taking the seafloor here that we made, this fractal seafloor, and earlier we had, I showed you we had our ripples up here, and actually I'll untemplate this so you can see. Sorry, that's a bit distracting. So we had our ripples up here, and then we made fake caustics, or faustics as I like to call them, and then we comp them over our seafloor here. So this will be our seafloor that we want on the bottom. And the way we get that is we take our height field here, and we rasterize that geometry relative to the camera view and get its UV, which gives us this from the point of view of the camera. And then we'll use that as our UV to take our seafloor texture. So here's our seafloor texture using that UV, and we texture sample it. And so we now, if we look through the camera, that's our view, and it looks like the caustics are on the seafloor. But we want that on our water plane. So here I just took like a standard plane here, and rather than having it be an XY, it's an XZ. And so what we're going to do is project onto that layer. So project this onto that layer. And you can see here it looks pretty weird because it's projected onto it, unless you look from the camera view, and then it looks right. And then we want to distort that based on the ripples we made earlier. We made the ripples here with the letters, and then we made ripples here that we're going to use for distortion. So here's our sloped to distort. So here if we look at our, and this is another distort using that, and so if we distort, and let's look through the camera here, if we distort that layer using those ripples, you can see here it appears that the ripples, the ripple rings, are distorting the ground and the caustics underneath. And then we take our original ripples, the text ones we made back here, there they are, yep. And we comp those over top, and so now we have a water surface with our distorting our caustics and terrain underneath. And then we'll just template our terrain back here, just to preview before we took all this into Karma, and see what that looks like. And so now we have you know, our valley with some scatter on it, and some fake caustics from the point of view of the camera. Again, it's kind of strange from other points of view, but it's just an example of using projection on layer. So obviously it's a flat plane. There is a way to project if this is three-dimensional, and I'll show that in another YouTube. It's a little more complex, and also projecting onto geometry.